What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about more details on the WB platform fighter game, which I believe a lot of people are calling Multiverse. And Jeff Grubb dropped these details. Now, of course, obviously, this doesn't have to be true, but it could be. So obviously, you have to take it with a grain of salt. But he is a very, I think a lot of people know Jeff Grubb's name at this point. He's a pretty darn reliable leaker overall. And so I'm just going to kind of read through these little tidbits. This comes from Nibel over on Twitter, which is also a phenomenal person over there, and let's just go through it. So from his source, it looks cheap. That's a great way of starting it. It could be a free-to-play title. Future characters will be sold as DLC, and first DLC fighter could be WB's very own LeBron James. Now, that's where it starts, that's where it ends, and I'm not happy with pretty much any of that. So look, let me just reaffirm kind of where I stand on this fighting game, and then we can talk about this info. I have nothing against anybody. I think on Reddit there was like a PBS fighting game leak, where it'd be like Dora the Explorer and stuff like that, and everybody was like upvoting it. I don't think it's actually real, but I think the general point is they're fun. You know what I mean? To see all of and literally like a multiverse like this, just to see all these characters in a game battling each other, it's wacky, it's weird, it's different, it's not maybe canonically correct, right? But it's okay, and I think there's a place for games like this. I do. Smash, PlayStation All-Stars, Nickelodeon, also. So there's like all of these games I think have a purpose, and I think there's a lot more you can do with them. So when you hear a WB one, you're like, Jesus Christ. Again, the list is obviously out there of supposed people. Batman, like, that's awesome. Johnny Bravo. Like, you can do some incredible things with these characters. Ron and Harry, potentially, right? Now, I really hope they have Harry Potter characters in it. But then the next part is, okay, well, if you're going to do it, I guess my preference is you do it right. And I guess my version of right is you do it the best quality and the best that you possibly can. You don't necessarily have to have a story, right? Different games have had different like Smash's story is different. PlayStation All-Stars' story is different. It's not even technically, well, you could it's a story for each character. But Mortal Kombat and Justice, like, they have it, but that's in a set universe, so it's a little bit easier to do that. But if you wanted to do a wacky, weird kind of story, you could. I'd be all up for that. But if you didn't even want to do that, you just want to make it a multiplayer game, I really have no problem with it. But then the next thing is, when you go into the live service route, I have a lot of problems there. We've talked about my opinions of live service games before, and to mash it with a fighting game is definitely, that's a decision that hasn't exactly happened yet, but it could. And remember, the stuff that we've heard about the team that's supposed to be making it. So, one of the things I will say against Jeff Grubb here is I think we already know, specifically the free-to-play stuff. I think we already know that. I don't know why it's could be instead of that it is, and maybe it's just because his source won't confirm it. But the earliest we've ever heard about this game made from the San Diego team, which definitely seems to be the team that's making this game, is it would be a free-to-play game, a free-to-play like new IP game. So I'm gonna take the jump and say it will be free-to-play. Which, remember, when I made the video covering the news in the first place, we kind of led with that this would be, and I remember I said some of this stuff too, right? If the DLC characters are paid, I actually predicted that on Monday. If the DLC characters you have to pay for it, the base roster better be freaking good. It better be. And the first part to his thing, right, that it looks cheap, is not exactly, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence, right? Because again, I want a game that immediately comes off very, very strong, especially a game like this, how you can easily imagine, right? You give us a base roster, you give us base maps, and the game lives on through you paying for everything else. Now, is that inherently bad? No, not necessarily. In fact, I think it could work, and I think if done well, it would be fine. But the thing is, as again I predicted on Monday, what I don't want is to have the DLC be bigger than the game itself. So again, like, you start the game with 10 characters and 5 maps, but then over the next like year or two, you get like 15 more characters, but you have to pay like $5 each. So, the DLC they're giving you is actually more than the game itself, so you kind of feel cheap. Now, the game's free to play, so there is a base game there, but I just think you could, like, it doesn't mean you can't criticize, you know what I mean? Just because like that is the case or that could be the case doesn't mean you can't criticize it. Like, I think there's just better ways of doing it. So again, you know, paying for the future DLC characters is not it's not the most surprising. That's definitely for sure. And again, it's not even necessarily the worst thing of all time, but the base game needs to be solid, and the first part, that it looks cheap, is a little worrisome. Now granted though, if it is the team that we think, this game is in like early, like the game's not done yet. Now maybe you can tell based off of early concepts, or maybe they were able to see the game. We don't know. Maybe you are able to tell at an early state if the game looks like it's going to be a high quality like AAA game, or if it looks like like they gave them $10 and said, well, try to make something. Actually, the more I say it out loud, the more I do probably think that's possible, that you could tell. So I'm not pleased with that at all. And then LeBron James, don't even get me started on that guy. I would never play as him in this. So, again, there's possibilities with DLC, and I'm not saying I'd be against buying DLC characters depending on, which ones they are. But if the game makes me mad with like giving us 5 characters in the base roster and the game sucks, there's no reason. That's the thing that none of these guys, even though I don't want to go too much into like Marvel's Avengers, but all of these games, one of my main problems with these live service games, I think so many of them forget, and some of them do it well, but so many of them forget that the base game needs to be good. Like, if you don't initially hit with the base game that's got the mechanics, that's got whatever the main thing the game is supposed to be, if you don't have that at launch, the game's not good. Now, maybe it'll Actually, you know what? I will stay with that. Even like a game like Star Wars Battlefront 2, I love that game. I think the additions to that game saved the game. But the thing is, the game did have a good base. It just didn't have a lot in that base. So maybe I would argue, even if a game like this, say it's got 5-6 characters, it's just so bare bones in terms of content, but it's an incredible fighting game. It's like one of the best ones out there. You still have something to lean on. And then when you give us more stuff over time, you add it, then all of a sudden, okay, now all of a sudden the game's coming together. Yet again, for Battlefront, the characters were free. You just had to put in-game credits to them, which I would prefer for a free-to-play game, that you just have to earn them. But we know how these things go, right? They make them impossible to actually earn. You have to grind it out too much, and people end up buying it. So, obviously up and down. I'm going to give this game a chance. I want to see this game, obviously, in action. But, again, it looks cheap. Maybe that indicates that it's closer than at least I think it is. I don't think it's coming out next year, but maybe we'll see it next year. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. If you want to follow me on Twitter, or subscribe to my second YouTube channel, or support us on Patreon or YouTube memberships, links for all of them are in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all on the next video.